Yes.
Recording is on.
So today we start from 1.4. I'll share my screen with you. Okay, just before I start 1.4, we'll just recap 1.3 quickly, just so that we know where we had left.
Yeah.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Would someone like to read this verse in a proper meter? Would you like to try? A, B, C, D, which we had done, for the verses. Yeah, Rishi, go for it.
Okay, I'll try, Prabhuji. पश्यतां पाण्डुपुत्राणाम्
Pashyetam Panduputraणाम
पाण्डुपुत्राणाम् आचार्य महतीं च मूम्
Acharya Mahatim Chamum
व्यूढां द्रुपदपुत्रेण
Vyudham Drupada Putrena
तव शिष्येन धीमता
Tava Shishyena Dhimata. Someone like to read the translation? That's in English.
I can read if no one.
Yep.
Okay. Here in this army are many heroic bowmen equal in fighting to Bhim and Arjun. Great fighters like Yuyudhan,
No, no.
Virat.
Kalpesh, you're reading for 1.4. We are reading 1.3.
Oh, sorry. Okay. O my teacher, behold the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupad.
So, who was the son of Drupad?
Drishtadyumna.
So, it's mentioned here. Yes. So, it's mentioned here. If you read the purport
Recording
below,
is on.
you will see the name here. So, it's Drishtadhyumna. Yeah. Okay. So, we will go a little in flashback to understand the relationship of Drupad and Drona Acharya. So, just to give you a bit of background on this, Drupad and Dronacharya, his name is Drona because he was a teacher. That's why he was addressed as Acharya, Drona Acharya, because his name was Drona. So Drona and Drupad, they used to study in the same Gurukul. So they were classmates when they were in school. And Drona was a Brahman because he belonged to a Brahmanical family. And he was not very rich. So Brahmanas in those times will only survive or only have their livelihood on teaching people and whatever donations they would get. And they will not request or they ask for any money to anyone. They will not accumulate any wealth. So that was the nature and the characteristic of a Brahmana in those times. So he belonged to a Brahmanical family, Drona, and he was not very rich. He was a poor boy. And Drupad was a Kshatriya, son of a king, and he was very rich. And he was a prince at that time. So Drupad and Drona, once when they were sitting and having a lunch together, Drona always used to share his thoughts and his understanding of the literature which they used to study together with Drupad, and Drupad used to be very much inclined in learning and associating with Drona, because Drona was very bright in terms of knowledge. He was very knowledgeable and intelligent. So it so happened that once during the lunch, Drupad, looking at the poor background of Drona, he gave him a promise. He gave him a kind of a promise from his end, that I promise you that when I grow old and become the king, I will give you half of my kingdom, so that you will have enough money and you won't be poor anymore. You'll have a lot of assets. This was when they were teenagers. And Drona took it as a gift. He accepted, because in those times, Brahmins will accept the gifts from the Kshatriyas only if Kshatriyas would offer the gifts. This was the culture at that time. Sometimes some Brahman or some Rishi or some Sadhu will just visit a king's palace, and because of the Varna, what are the 4 Varnas? Anyone like to say the 4 Varna? We discussed ashram last time.
Prabhuji, is it Brahman, Kshatriya, Shudra and Vaishya?
Yes. Who's speaking?
Kamakshi, Prabhuji.
Kamakshi. Okay. I'm not able to see you. Okay, but I see that your microphone is flickering, so I understand who you are. Okay. Thank you, Kamakshi. Thank you. So yes, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. And how are these allocations or Varna were actually implemented? How was the implementation
Hierarchy?
of this Varna? Yeah.
Brahman at the top, and then Kshatriya, then Shudra, and then Vaishya, I guess.
So hierarchically, if you see hierarchy, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. But how were these actually implemented within the society? How were they implemented? How would somebody be called a Brahman?
By the nature of work.
Based on work.
Based on, sorry?
Work. The nature of work they do.
Karma.
Yeah.
Okay. Did someone say something else?
Also by birth.
Also by birth, by Janma. Okay. Did someone say something else apart from Janma and Karma? Okay. So initially, I mean, during the initial stages of Vedic culture, it was by karma. It was by karma. So if you look at the history of even in Mahabharata, if we take from King Bharata, so from King Bharata, after whose name our country's name was given, that Bharatvarsha. So King Bharat, he did not give his kingdom to his own son. I mean, not to his biological son. He gave the kingdom to a different person who was capable of handling the kingdom, who was the Kshatriya or a proper administrator by nature. So he looked at the karma of the person, and based on that, he gave away his kingdom to him, not to his own son. Due to which his mother, Bharat's mother, was Shakuntala. Everyone knows who was Shakuntala?
Yeah.
Shakuntala was whose daughter?
Yogina.
Menaka.
Sorry?
Menaka.
Yes. Menaka's daughter. And who was her father?
Rishi.
Vishwamitra. Yes.
Yeah.
Vishwamitra daughter was Shakuntala, who was the mother of King Bharat.
But I'm not. I don't know who was the Bharat's son. I mean, biological, and who Bharat. I mean,
Yeah,
who.
yeah,
This
yeah.
is the Jad Bharat same.
No,
We
no,
if
no.
we read about in
No, no,
Bhagavatam. No,
no, no,
no,
no, no.
no.
No,
That's a
he's
different.
different one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Three
King
sons.
Bharat gave the kingdom to someone who was capable, not to his biological son. So the point what I'm trying to say here is that it is by karma who is someone is known to be by his varna. So varna is based on his karma. Now, um, how does the karma gets implemented? How does someone get into the karma? How does someone start working in certain manner
Based on what they learn.
based on what they learn? Yes. And is there any other aspect as well? Who
And
did
the
that based on
family.
what they learn? Who answered based on what they learn?
Yeah, that was me, Rohan.
Yeah. Thank you. So yes. Any other aspect?
And the family business also, whatever they for. I
Family
mean,
business. Okay. So the family does something and they pick up from there. Okay. Yes. Another aspect. Family traditions. So it is said in the scriptures that at the beginning, that is at the birth, from 1 to age 5, year, whatever the kid is born till year 5, it is a sanskaras. It is a samskara which the child learns from their parents. And after that, it is the sangha, the association the child gets into. That's how he learns. So teachers, that's why when a child is, at the age of going into the school, the parents search for the best of the school so that he gets the best association of the right teachers and the right students. So association matters after that. Now these are the two samskaras. Now also, if we look at the karma part of it, when we say he's by karma, so we have also to see that what is the nature of the child, whether he is inclined towards something, and that comes from the previous birth, not from this birth. The inclination towards something, it depends on the previous karma, that is the birth, current birth, the previous birth's karma. Because when a child is born, from this birth there is no karma attached, right? There is no karma, he has not done anything, but there is some karma from his previous life, from his previous janma. So that brings in the nature for the child. So some children, you will see they have an inclination towards some kind of an activity, and that determines whether that child is Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya or Shudra. Or over a period of time, that nature will be revealed automatically. So you might see, even if someone is in an association of some people who are not his swajati or the right association of his, he may develop a kind of inclination towards some other group, and slowly he may become that and come up into that field or that particular nature of his. So the nature eventually develops. That's why we always, the Shastras always speak about self-realization and self-introspection in order to find out our own nature. Anyway, so that is not the topic to discuss. So here we are coming back to the varna. So these varna are nature of the person, the sanskara, as well as the association he is in or she is in. That develops the person's varna. Okay. So I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and others I think have gone for a little break. So we'll give a 10-second pause till everyone comes back. Thank you. Most of us are back, but I'll leave the others for their break. We'll continue. All right. So the Varna are these four. And what are the four ashramas?
Brahmacharya.
Brahmacharya,
What's the second?
Grahastha,
Grahastha,
Vanaprastha,
Vanaprastha,
and Sannyasa.
Sannyasa.
Yes.
So this is what we had discussed last week. So today we are discussing the Varna. So with the Varna, Brahman, because of his past karma and his nature and his association and his sanskara, Drona was a Brahman and Drupad was the king. So he promised that he will give half of his kingdom so that he comes out of his poor background and he gets some money when they grow up. So this was the promise made by Drupad to Drona. But when they grew up, there was a time when Drona, he was not Drona Acharya at that time. He was just Drona. He had not become the Acharya for all the Kshatriyas and the prince to teach them, the different kind of, or start his own Gurukul. Till that time, he was just merely living on donations and alms and all those kind of things. He had nothing with him. He had no accumulation of wealth with him. So there was a time when he and his wife, anyone knows Drona's wife name? Drona's wife's name was Kripi. Kripi. And Kripi was the sister of Kripacharya. Kripa. So Kripacharya was also a Brahman, was a teacher as well, who later became the Acharya at the palace of Dhritarashtra also. So that was just an deviation to the our topic, but just to understand. So Kripi and Drona, they were living together and they had a son. Anyone knows the name of their son? Ashwathama. Yes. So Ashwathama was the son of Drona and Kripi. And because they were very poor, so what they used to do, they did not have money or they did not have any cows. So what would they do? They will feed him water plus flour. So flour plus water, the mixture, the paste which you get, it looks like milk, white. So they used to feed him that, telling him that this is milk. So Ashwathama grew up drinking that atta water, perceiving it as milk. So he grew up with that. Once what happened, Ashwathama actually went out to his friend's place for a playover or sleepover, I don't know. And he went and had milk there, actual milk. And he asked, what is this? They said, this is milk. He said, no, this is not milk. I have, something else. But then he realized that milk is what the taste of milk is. And when he came back and when his mom fed him atta water, he refused to have that. He said, I want actual milk. And that was the reason for Drona to get a cow. There were no supermarkets at that time I could go and buy milk. So he had to get a cow in order to feed his son milk. So he recollected the promise of Drupad. That Drupad had promised me that he will give me his half of his kingdom. But I will not ask for half of his kingdom. I will just ask for some help so that I can feed my son and my family. And in return, I may, give him some kind of an, offer in terms of teaching or anything of that sort. So he went to Drupad and he reminded him of his school days and said that I need some help at this time, but I can give you some kind of teaching or any kind of a service in return, if you wish to, and please help me so that I can feed my family. Give me some cows and I will go and feed my family, my son, with some milk. Drupad refused at the first point. Then Drona reminded him of his promise which he had given during the school days. But he insulted him in turn and said, I don't remember of any such promise, which I would have said during my childhood. And he insulted him and he sent him back. So he came back with a lot of remorse, being very sad that Drupad has treated him very badly. And he could not feed his family for a long period of time until he was appointed as an Acharya in Hastinapur, where the kids actually identified him and brought him, Bhishma identified him and brought him to the court of Dhritarashtra and appointed him as the teacher. And then he further became the Acharya and had some wealth. So this was the background, and he was very angry at that time by seeing the reaction or the kind of behavior from Drupad. And he went and asked all his students at that time. His students were Pandavas as well as the Kauravas, both. So he asked all his students that I want Guru Dakshina from you. Who will give me Guru Dakshina? So Duryodhan came, first, said, I will give you the Guru Dakshina. What would you like? He said, I want you go and defeat Drupad in his kingdom and bring him here in front of me on his knees. He should be here in front of me. So Duryodhan went, but he was defeated by Drupad. He came back. Then he sent Arjun. So Arjun single-handedly went and defeated the whole army of Drupad and brought Drupad onto Drona. And then Drona said that now I would take all of your kingdom because you are defeated completely, and my student has given the whole kingdom and yourself to me as a Guru Dakshina. But because you had promised me, I'll give you half your kingdom back. So I'll keep the other half with me. So that's the way that animosity increased. And Drupad was very angry after that, the behavior of, they were on loggerheads, both of them. Now, who's right, who's wrong is something for, us to analyze. But this was the background why they were both on loggerheads and they were not on good terms. So the reason why we are discussing this is because in this verse, I'll go back to the verse. Duryodhan is talking to Dronacharya, saying, O my teacher, behold the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupad. So he is not taking the name of Drishtadumna. He is addressing him as the son of Drupad. Now there is one more thing to it, which is that Drishtadumna was also disciple of Dronacharya. So this was the nature of a Brahman. So as we discussed, someone who's by nature who's a Brahman, he's like that. That even if his enemy comes to him for education, he cannot say no. That is the guna within the varna. So these were the kinds of varna, and they used to follow that varna by nature. Not that someone draws any kind of rules and regulations and they have to follow it, but by nature They would just be like that. They would teach anyone who comes to them. And on top of that, Dronacharya knew that Drupad had done a fire sacrifice to obtain his son and his daughter, his son being Drishtadyumna and the daughter being Draupadi. They both were not biologically connected to Drupad. They came from a sacrificial fire. They were not born from the womb of Drupad's wife. So he had performed a yajna under the guidance of Gautama Rishi to get a son who could kill Drona. And Drona knew that this was the son who was born out of the sacrificial fire to kill me. Knowing all this background, he gave admission to that kid into his Gurukul and taught him how to fight. This was the nature of a Brahman. And this shows the nature and the Varna, how they used to follow as a Brahman, as compared to today. Okay, so this is the character of Dronacharya, very powerful character. So we'll go back on to our discussion on this verse. So this is why Duryodhan was considered to be a very good politician as to how he would invoke or inspire or abuse someone so as to get the character out of that person, what he wanted to be. So he is invoking that kind of anger into Dronacharya's heart so that he can fight for him. Dronacharya being the army chief. Okay, so we'll go on to the next verse. Any questions or comments so far on 1.3?
So basically, Prabhuji, you are saying that Duryodhan is a very smart politician, and he actually, on purpose, kind of poking Dronacharya.
Yes. So if you see the words used here, he is using these words, your intelligent disciple.
Okay, got it.
And son of Drupad.
So, Prabhuji, one question here.
Yes, yes.
Like Dronacharya ji was a Brahmana, so why was he fighting as a Kshatriya?
Yeah, very good question. Why did Dronacharya choose to fight in the war, though being a Brahman? Now, there are certain dharma you have people follow. Now, Duryodhan was the son of Dhritarashtra, and Dhritarashtra was the employer of Dronacharya. Okay, so what he did not get from the entire world being so poor, he got it from Dhritarashtra. So there was a burden that he was paid by Dhritarashtra, and his family was taken care by from that payment. So as the loyalty, he could not refuse Duryodhan on not fighting for the Kauravas.
So
there was his angle of saying.
So does it mean at this time, at this point of time, he was a Kshatriya and not Brahmana?
Yes, he was performing the act as a Kshatriya. Yes, he was not what you call compelled to fight, but he chose to fight. Although Duryodhan, there will be some other references to what were the conversations. Will come when it comes in Bhagavad Gita, where Duryodhan tried to speak such words to Dronacharya so that he gets into that mode of fighting. So there were certain things which were referenced by Duryodhan to tell him that we have supported you and we have helped you in your bad times. So it's your time for reciprocation. So he had convinced him to fight for him.
So basically, Dronacharya was under the pump, and he chose his loyalty rather than doing right thing.
Doing right thing.
Hmm.
What is the right thing?
That's a big question. But like following, doing a right thing from doing right side, basically, being on the right side.
What is the right side for him? Now, if I put myself into Dronacharya's shoes, and my employer tells me to do something, I don't know. What would you do?
That's a big question mark.
So we have to put ourselves into the shoes of an employee. We do many things which are against our nature. We don't like to do things, certain things which we just don't want to do. But we do them, showing our loyalty to the organization, to our employer, under whose shelter we are, as we think as we are under that person's shelter. We do many things. I'm just analyzing here. There's nothing in the Shastras written about this part, but if we put ourselves into someone's shoes, but where is he coming from? He's performing apara dharma. Apara dharma is something where you come out of your own personal nature, but you do something as a formality, which you have to, for your family, for your friends, for your employer, for whatever. Okay, since you have brought up this topic, so there are three kinds of dharma which we do normally in terms of para and apara. So para dharma is when you are doing something for your own nature. Say, for example, you want to self-introspect yourself. Adhyatma, spiritual progress, all these kinds of activities are considered to be para dharma, internal to yourself. Apara dharma is when you do something external to yourself. That is taking care of your family, working, earning money, fighting for your rights, etc., etc. Everything external is apara dharma. And that also has some categories. So there are certain categories when it comes to apara dharma also. So you have something called as naimittika dharma. So naimittika dharma is that kind of dharma which you do unknowingly. It's a naimittika, it's a schedule. So for example, nobody tells you to wake up at certain time, but you wake up. Nobody tells you to go to the washroom after you wake up, but you do that. Like nitya karma, you go to the toilet without anyone telling you. So you do that. Although somebody would have told you when you were a child, but again, even if someone would have not told you when you were a child, you would have done it because of the nature's call. So that is called naimittika, a schedule. It just happens. You eat at a particular time. You start feeling hungry. That is naimittika. The schedule which happens, which you do it unknowingly as a schedule. That is naimittika dharma. After that, there is aupacarikta, aupacarika dharma, which you do as a formality. As per my experience and my understanding, nobody likes to go to the office, 90%. But they have to. They have to work. That is aupacarikata. You do it as a formal responsibility, as a formality. There are many times you have to go to a birthday party who's a kid's birthday party. Would you love to be there? Sometimes you are not. You just are there because you are just doing Aupacarikata. You're just doing something socially. So that is Aupacarikata Dharma. So this comes under that category where Dronacharya was performing his Aupacharik Dharma. He had some kind of burden which he's thinking that I have to repay off. Okay. Looks like this topic went a little boring and everybody went for a break. Again. Sorry, did I answer your question, Manishji?
Yeah, yes, Ji, yes. Ranjit, I think, wants to say something.
Yes, Randeep.
Okay, sorry with the question. Prabhuji, yes, I can understand, with Rishi's question that, it was his dharma to go ahead and protect or to fight on the basis of the Kauravas. But sir, being a Brahman, wouldn't he know about, Sanatan Dharma? I mean, isn't he more guided by that more than, this, I guess, Opcharikta?
So what is the question, Randeep?
Okay, there is something known as a duty towards God, right? So wouldn't he have? Isn't
What
his?
is the duty towards God?
Yeah, I mean, as compared to, isn't his duty towards God towards, I guess, be actually, how should I say this? Wouldn't it be higher as compared to, just working on the basis of formality?
Yeah, good point, Randeep. Adhyatma is the third one, which is the Paradharma, which is so Naimittika, as we said, unknowingly we do things as a schedule, Naimittika Dharma. Then it is the Aupacarikata Dharma, Aupacharik Dharma, and third is Adhyatma, which is the journey towards self-realization, wherein you go and try to do some spiritual progress and understanding. But you have to perform both dharma, para as well as apara dharma. You cannot just say that because I am doing para dharma now, apara dharma I don't want to do. So I will give up everything and I'll become a sannyasi and I'll just go and do my adhyatma and just I don't care about my family. No, that will not be the right way of looking at it or doing things. It is said that when you want to progress in your spiritual journey, you have to make sure that you have completed your material journey.
But so my question is, if he's already gone on his spiritual journey, right? He's been already a acharya. Then how do
we determine that he has gone on his spiritual journey?
Oh, okay. Okay. I just thought that because he's teaching, both the Pandavas and the Kauravas, he's actually at a state, that he'd probably have done things.
Yeah, teaching
so that
or
he's not
any profession, you may think it may help you in your paradharma also. It may so happen, but generally it is so that we work because of some benefit, because of some returns, so that we can run our material life. Generally, that is how this material world works. We work to gain something so that we can fulfill our material needs, and that is exactly what is aparadharma. So when we are doing aparadharma, that is equally important. We cannot say no to it. So when we are doing aparadharma, sometimes it may take precedence, sometimes it may not, but it is important.
Sir, you said there are three dharmas, right?
Yeah. So
Paradharma.
No. So okay. So we'll go back onto the categories. Aparadharma means which is not. Aparadharma is which is not spiritual. So material dharma is called apara dharma. So, you know, namityaka dharma is come under material. So if you wake up in the morning and do your activities, that is not adhyatma. That is not spiritual. Unless you wake up in the morning at 4 o'clock and do your really focused, you know, meditation on, or you try to do some of the spiritual activities. You know, you do that as a first part. That would be, you know, irrespective of anything happening in your life, you continue doing that. That means you are giving precedence to your paradharma. Okay. So the categories which I told you in before was material and spiritual. Under material, we have namityaka and aupacarikata. But the progression to namityaka and aupacarikata is the adhyatma, which is spiritual. Did I answer your question?
Yes, yes.
Yes. So one dharma is not into these three categories. The material or the apara dharma has namityaka and aupacarikata. Only two. So only if we come out of that, if we complete these, then we can think about the third one, which is the adhyatma. It is said that someone who wants to take or who wants to renounce his life or become a sannyasi, the first, if he's a married person, if he's a grahastha, only if his wife is ready that yes, he has completed his duty and he can take sannyasa, then he should think about it. Otherwise, no.
Sir, it is written somewhere like that?
No, it is from my guru.
Okay, okay.
No, I think it is written. It is
Written?
written that yeah, it is written that you know, one has to take the permission from, if he's not married, then he has to take the permission from the mother. Because I was listening the Shankaracharya's you know, that lifetime. So it was, he had to take the permission from his mother when he went for sannyasa.
Very
So
nice. Yes.
yeah, and then he went for that. Yeah, he did some kind of leela to get the permission from his mother, because his mother was never ready to go for sannyasa.
Yeah. Actually, to the extent of that, I mean, my you know, my shiksha gurus who have learned all this from, as well as the shastra, they have mentioned that when the person's wife actually goes to his guru and tells him that now you please take him and make him a sannyasi, I don't need him anymore, only then he's eligible.
Yeah.
Not
It
if he
happened
goes
in
by himself. Yeah. Not if
it
he goes
happened
by
in
himself and says, I want to become a
Gyandev.
sannyasi. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
please
no,
go.
it happened in Gyandev's character also, because he even didn't tell his wife when he went for sannyasa. Then he just went and lied to his guru that I'm not married. But when his guru got to know that he's married, and so then he went back to, told him that you have to go back to your family life. You cannot do like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the other reason I would like to mention that Dronacharya was fond of his son, and his son forced him to fight to get into this battle, because Ashwathama wanted that his father should fight against the Pandavas, because he used to jealous with them. So yeah, that was the reason. Because
Is there a reference to that one, Madaji, in Mahabharat?
Yeah, it is there. It is there in Mahabharat, because he was very fond of his son, and his son Ashwathama.
He encouraged him. Okay.
He
Okay.
encouraged him. Yeah, he to fight against him.
Okay. So the understanding the character of Dronacharya is with respect to this verse and understanding Duryodhan. So this verse is spoken by Duryodhan, and all the verses till 1.10, I think it's Duryodhan who is speaking, but it is not Duryodhan who is directly speaking to us. We are being told by Sanjay, who is speaking to Dhritarashtra. Okay, So to visualize, it is picture in picture. So Sanjay is telling us Duryodhana is staying at the battlefield. Okay, to Dronacharya. Okay, so we'll go to the next verse. Anyone saying something? Any messages? Do we have issues with audio?
No,
Anyone having issues with the audio?
no, not me at least.
Okay, all right.
Who is asking that?
I think Randhir was asking this.
Okay.
You still have issues, Randhir?
Randhir, you're on mute. That's why you have issues, buddy.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. We do have video issues though. I'm sure it's not the software. All right. Okay. So we'll move on to the next verse. So if you see the purport here, I'll just highlight that Duryodhana, a great diplomat, wanted to point out the defects of Dronacharya, the great Brahmana commander-in-chief. Very nicely said by Srila Prabhupada. Brahman commander-in-chief. So Brahman Senapati. This is what it is. The Senapati has to be Kshatriya, ideally. It's fighting. So Brahmana Senapati. So it is also mentioned, if you read the purport, say Dronacharya had some political quarrel with King Drupad, which we discussed, the father of Draupadi, who was Arjun's wife. As a result of this quarrel, Drupad performed a great sacrifice by which he received the benediction of having a son who would be able to kill Dronacharya. Dronacharya knew this perfectly well, and yet as a liberal Brahman, he did not hesitate to impart all his military secrets with the son of Drupad. Dhritarashtra was entrusted to him for military education. So now, because of this, Duryodhana is telling him that you're intelligent disciple, though the intelligence was imparted by Dronacharya to him. So the words of Duryodhana are very calculative words. And he will further speak in similar tone in the next verse, 1.4.
Prabhuji, can I ask one question on
Yes.
1.3?
Yes.
Like, how would you, convince people in today's jet age that, a great sacrifice was done, and out of that sacrifice, Drupad and Draupadi were born?
Very good question, Kalpesh. I wanted to highlight on that one, but good that you asked this question. Okay. Now, before that, just not the sacrifice, there is also Sanjay, who is like a mystic television, of that time. How will we convince someone on that front also? But nowadays, it's possible that you can put some camera there and you can view things here. That's possible. It wasn't possible, 150 years ago. So there is much in this universe, which science has to discover. And discovery is what we call science. It's not about creating something, unfortunately. Nothing is created. It's only discovered. And that's how science progresses. So understanding how complex this universe is, it brings the sense of humility. So when we have the sense of humility that there is lots in this universe to uncover. So people say this is all mythological. The word given is myth. That sacrifice, someone born from that, someone looking at the, from his, chakshu which is given, or the eyes which are given by his guru, the power which is given by his guru. which is still mythological. So anything that contradicts the current conception of science is called imaginary, if you look at it. So currently we have the conception that yes, someone can put a camera there and then we can view from here. No wires required. You can use a satellite. Wireless. It's possible now. But if we tell about the same thing 200 years ago, nobody would believe that. Yeah?
Yeah.
So that contradicts the current conception of science is called imaginary. So if I contradict something which is the current conception, it's you're imagining. It's not science. But if you see, if you cannot comprehend something, if you cannot imagine something, then you will not be able to discover that too. So that is also science. But what we see impossible now could be possible tomorrow. So when we talk about the science aspect, you know, science, we talk about physical, you know, the body, physical eyes, you know, and all that, so you can see that. But there is also a higher sense within the body, which is called the mind, which even the greatest scientists could not understand. There is a statement by Albert Einstein that the one thing he couldn't understand throughout his life is a human mind. So mind is always a higher sense, a sixth sense as we call, is also termed as mind. It's a higher sense than all the other physical gross senses. So mind is not restricted by the gross. Matter as we call it, all these senses, mind is something more. So mind can perceive things which are not possible by the gross eye. So that is something which is called perception, and that is done by the mind. Now Sanjay was given the capability to be able to perceive which is not visible. That is called yoga sadhana. Sadhana is practice, yoga is to connect through your mind. So mind can be trained to perceive. And once someone is perceiving that, that's called prapta siddhi. That is how when you talk about yogis who have siddhis, proper, that is called when they achieve it. So prapta siddhi, when they're able to. Mind can perceive things by the prapta siddhi, or if someone has that siddhi and grants you that siddhi. That is the science behind this. So that science is not as this material science. It's a little higher. So if you see the definition of science, it's the systematic body of knowledge. It's not specific to the body, although it is only confined to it at the moment. Although it has gone a little higher to mind, where we talk about psychology, psychiatry, you know, all these things which they deal with mind, but very hard, struggling there. So on top of that, it is only by certain experiments they'll be able to get your IQ or intelligent question, but intelligence is higher than that, than your mind, but still that's an area of study. They have not reached there. So science is not monopolized by any specific process of study. It is open. So subtle body, as we have discussed, subtle body and material body. Subtle body means the mind, and material body is the physical gross senses which we have. So analysis is systematically elaborated in detail in Vedic scriptures. So even now, if someone follows that, there are possibilities that you may be able to get the Prapta Siddhi. And there are yogis who have that Prapta Siddhi. They can show you magic. So Sanjay was given mystic power. So was the King Drupad. He was personally not a Siddha yogi, but he went to a Siddha yogi who could perform the sacrifice, the yajna in order to produce a child who could kill Drona.
Mhm.
Did I elaborately answer your question?
Yes, little bit. It was some of the things were a little bit beyond my, beyond I could digest. Digest in the sense, understand. But yeah, I think I got the gist of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the understanding of the capabilities of the mind is vast. It's vast, literally vast. So Vedic scriptures do provide a kind of systematic study in terms of, mastering your mind and getting those siddhis in order to get these things, in real life. But it is a proper study. Somebody has to study the Vedic scriptures properly. Okay. Should we go on to next verse? If it's okay. 1.4.
Very, very well explained, Prabhuji. I really appreciate. Very well explained.
So we will go to the next verse, which is 1.4. And I just wanted to show you this slide of the understanding of the Mahabharata soldiers, so that you understand these the soldiers and their capacity. And so that's what Duryodhana is trying to explain Dronacharya. 1.4. I've just gone onto the link. Is everyone on the same page? 1.4.
Yeah.
So please repeat after me on the shloka. So this is Duryodhan speaking to Dronacharya. Atra shura maheshwasa
Atra shura maheshwasa
Bhimarjuna samayudhi
Bhimarjuna samayudhi
Yuyudhano viratascha
Yuyudhano viratascha
Drupadascha maharatha.
Drupadascha maharatah
Atra shura maheshwasa
Atra shura maheshwasa
Bhimarjuna samayudhi
Bhimarjuna samayudhi
Yuyudhano viratascha
Yuyudhano viratascha
Drupadascha maharatha.
Drupadascha maharatah.
Okay, so there are certain words here which have been used by Duryodhan. Can someone read the translation for me, please?
Here in this army are many heroic men equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna. Great fighters like Yuyudhana, Virata, and Drupada.
Drupada. So Duryodhana is describing various soldiers here. That who are these soldiers? And they are equivalent to Bhima and Arjun. And he is using the word Maharatha, which is Maharathi. So they are Maharathis. He's talking about different Maharathis here. So he's given some names here. He has given a name called Yuyudhan. Yuyudhan, Virat, and Drupad. So now we have already discussed about Drupad. So you know who's Drupad now? Anyone knows who's Virat?
I think he was Uttara's father.
Uttara's father, correct. Okay. So Virat was Uttara. Everyone knows who's Uttara?
Wife of Arjuna's son.
Yes. Who said that?
Abhimanyu's wife,
Who said that?
Smita.
Correct, Smita. Thank you. Abhimanyu's wife was Uttara, and Virat was the father-in-law of Abhimanyu. So that is father of Uttara. Virat was the king of Matsya. Kingdom was Matsya, where all these Pandavas were living in disguise for a year of anonymity, Agyatavasa, after they finished the 12 years of exile in forest. So that was Virat. So he was also, so Drupad, Virat. Anyone knows who's Yuyudhan? Yuyudhan? Anyone? Yuyudhan was from the Vrishni dynasty. That is from Krishna's side. From the Krishna's army. His other name also, you might have heard this, called Satyaki. Have you heard about Satyaki? Satyaki was his other name. Yuyudhan. So, if you know a bit of the background, Krishna was asked for help by Duryodhan and Arjun. Both of them approached Krishna that please help us. It so happened that Krishna saw Arjun first because he was sitting at his feet. But Duryodhan was the one who came in first, but he was sitting on his head while Krishna was taking rest. Not on his head, near his head. Sorry. So, when Krishna woke up, he saw Arjun in front, so he asked Arjun, what do you want? Whether you want my army or whether you want me. And I'm not going to fight. So Arjun said, even if you don't fight, no matter what, I just want you. And then Duryodhan said, okay, I'll keep the Narayani Sena. That Narayani Sena was chief. The commander-in-chief was Yuyudhana, Satyaki. But he resigned from that post. He said, I don't want to be commander-in-chief for an army where Krishna is not there, so I will go and join the Pandavas. And when he came there, Sahadev, everyone know who's Sahadev?
Yeah.
Sahadev was the fourth brother or the fifth brother in sequence of the Pandavas, son of Madri. Okay, Sahadev and Nakul. So Sahadev wanted, he suggested, he was an astrologer also. So he had suggested, and he had, what do we call this? He had proposed name of Yuyudhan or Satyaki as the commander-in-chief because he was a commander-in-chief of Narayani Sena. So he had proposed his name. But because Drona was the commander-in-chief, Krishna said Drishtadyumna will be a better option. Because he is born to kill Drona. Okay.
Purpose.
So that's why Drishtadyumna became the commander-in-chief. So that was the background of Yuyudhana. Yuyudhana was supposed to be the commander-in-chief. Satyaki. Now all these three are the Maharathis. Now I'll share with you one slide to understand the different soldiers of Mahabharat so that you know who's a Maharathi. Okay, I'll share my screen with you. This will be the last slide for today. So, Maharathis. Okay, we'll come to Maharathi one by one. First, we'll start with the. So, Padatik, the one. Oh, did you lose it? Sorry. Think. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you, but we can't see
But
your screen.
my screen is gone. One moment. I'm just trying to get that. Yeah. Able to see my screen now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't trust technology completely sometimes. Okay. So seems there is some problem.
Yeah. Try not to expand the screen. Just drag it.
Yeah, that's what I did now. So
Hmm.
I'll try it now. I've switched off the monitor and started again. Just waiting for it to come up. I'll close this. Yeah, now I'll share my screen. Okay. Yeah. Able to see it now?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So the ones soldiers which walk, padatik, infantrymen, soldiers who walk. Okay, single soldier.
Ashwaro.
Next is the Ashvarohi, the horseman. Okay, one Ashvarohi equals to 12 infantrymen, so he can defeat 12 people for walking. That's how they were trained. That's their credential. Gaja, soldier on an elephant. One Gaja equal to 12 Ashvarohi. 12 horsemen equal to one person on the elephant. Ardharathi. Ardharathi, a soldier on a chariot who's considered equal to one Gaja.
Okay.
So that means he can fight 12 horsemen. Then there is Rathi, a warrior who's considered to fight 12 Ardharathis. Atirathi, a warrior who's considered equal to 12 Rathis. That means 12 people on the chariot he can fight alone. And a Maharathi, a warrior who is considered equal to 12 Atirathis. That is a Maharathi. So we are talking about Maharathis here. So Yuyudhan, Virat, and Drupad, they were Maharathis. Okay.
Hmm.
And there are further Ati Maharathi and Maha Maharathis. But this is the basic understanding of the different soldiers. Okay, so that is our 1.4. We end our discussion here today. Any questions or comments you may ask?
Prabhuji, but the last one that we discussed, 1.4.
Mhm.
But why this Duryodhan is talking about Bhim, Arjun, Yudhan, Virat, Drupad to Dronacharya in 1.4?
Ah. So he is trying to gauge the opponents and trying to inspire his commander-in-chief.
Mhm.
So as a coach, someone would go and inspire his team before the match.
Prabhuji, we can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Yeah. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So he's doing a job as a leader, trying to inspire as a coach, he's inspiring his captain,
Hmm.
gauging the opponent's army.
But what was his role on the battlefield? He was
Whose
just
role?
another soldier. Duryodhan.
Duryodhan. Duryodhan was the representative of the Kaurava army fully, because Dhritarashtra was
Okay.
completely attached to Duryodhan, and everybody knew that Dhritarashtra does not have his own decision. It's Duryodhan ultimately. So what Duryodhan says, Dhritarashtra agrees. So that is attachment. Attachment is when you are a puppet of whom you are attached to. You do exactly what the person whom you are attached to says. It's called attachment. Not just by action, from your heart. You just do whatever that person says. That is called attachment. So Dhritarashtra was attached to Duryodhan, and that was known to everyone. So indirectly, Duryodhan was the king already, controlling everything. That was his position. In 1.5, we will read that further. Or is he says here? No. Sorry. It is in 1.2. I'll just share my screen quickly so that we understand this also. So 1.2, if you read, Sanjaya Uvacha, Drishtva tu Pandavanekam, Vyunam Duryodhanastada, Acharyam Upasangamya, Raja Vachanam Abravit. So Duryodhan is being addressed by Sanjay as Raja. Now, something more to add there. So Raja has two meanings.
So we can't hear you.
Everything it's
Now it's good.
yeah. So Raja has two meanings. The immediate meaning is king. So Raja is a Sanskrit word, but the translation from Sanskrit to English is very difficult. But king is not the only meaning of Raja. Sanjay is pointing to something else also when he says Raja to Duryodhan. Anyone would like to give a wild guess?
जैसे कोई अपने बच्चे को राजा राजा कर दे.
No. Slightly on a higher level. Anyone would like to try? Just a guess.
The one who's taking the decisions?
One who takes the decisions. No. That word which it implies from, where it derives from, is the same. It comes from, Raja comes from something with Raj.
The state, Rajya?
No. It's Rajya. This is a Raj. So Raj is the
Rule.
prefix. Rule. Okay. So Raja derives from Rajniti.
Okay.
Someone who is a politician is also called as a Raja.
Okay.
So Sanjay, when addressing Duryodhan, he is saying that he is acting like a king, but he is a politician also. Which his words are portraying. Okay. So politician and leader are two different things. Yes?
Yes.
Correct? Agreed?
Yep.
Yeah.
So he is a Raja from the Rajniti. That could also be understood from this verse. 1.2. So, as a coach, he may be speaking, but he may be also speaking as a politician so as to bring in some passion out of the Brahman. injecting some passion of a Kshatriya into a Brahman by using his political words. That's another way of understanding. Did I answer your question, Kalpesh?
Yeah, yeah.
Any other questions or comments? No? Okay. So we'll end our discussion here. We'll see you next Saturday. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna,
Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhu.